A few years ago, I had trouble remembering names, places, and just the basic things that I would need to remember. And this book helped me through that entire time. I've seen family members lose their memory, and it really freaked me out a lot. So I went searching for a lot of things to help my memory come back, and this book was one of them. The first book was Limitless by Jim Quick, but I think I lent that book out to someone, so I don't have that book today. But in that book, he referenced this one. By doing the exercises and reading through the book, I realized that one of the main thing about memory is that you're paying attention. In this moment, you are paying attention. And once you remove your awareness from what's happening right now, you're not going to remember if you need something. So if you put down a book in the corner and later you can't find this book and you're searching everywhere for this book and you forgot that you put the book in the corner, I can remember that you put the book in the corner because I was actually paying attention to you and realize where you put it down. So I remember it. So it's like the first thing about memory is that you have to pay attention. You won't remember something if you're not aware of it in the first place. And that is a huge thing with our society nowadays, is that most of everyone heads are buried in the phone and no one's paying attention to their surroundings or paying attention to anything. Being able to remember something simply means that I was paying attention to that thing while it was happening. And if I got distracted for 2 seconds while that thing was happening, I'm not going to remember it. And that's one of the biggest reminders that this book has really solidified. It's like I have to be present in this moment and I have to be aware of everything that is happening, because once I'm distracted by a thought, distracted by the phone, distracted by some crazy thing that's happening, then the memory doesn't hit. I'm not there to solidify that memory. So when I'm going back in my memory vault to remember something from that moment, I can't remember it because I wasn't paying attention. So the first rule of being able to remember something that I'm realizing is that I have to be paying attention in that moment in the first place. If someone says to me, picture this, that's using memory, because nothing that I have in my brain, in my memory vault, is there without me actually remembering something or me being associated to that thing. And that's kind of one of the gist of where memorization comes from. I have to be able to associate what I'm learning new with something that I already know. So it's like when we were kids, we grew up and we learned how to survive in the world. And then when we went to school, we started learning new things. But in order to learn those new things, we had to associate them with something that we already know. So, all right, let me ask you this. The shape of Russia, what does that look like? You don't know, right? I don't know either. Let me ask you a simple question now. What does the shape of Italy looks like? A boot, right? Now, we know this, and this is etched in our brains because while in school, we were taught that Italy is shaped like a boot. Now, we know what a boot looks like, and we learn Italy is shaped like a boot. Those two are put together, so they're associated together, and that creates a lasting memory where we will never forget that Italy is shaped like a boot. So that is what I'm remembering, that if I want to learn something new, associate it with what I'm learning, what I already learned. And doing that is the exercises in the book. And going through that and learning that all over again, it's really a refresher, because it's like, hey, memory can be trained. And I don't have to have the fear of losing my memory anymore, because I know I'm responsible for training my brain and training my memory so I can remember anything. The cartoon Roadrunner really solidified itself in my brain, because it's not that it was a great cartoon, but the ridiculousness of it was just so funny that it was very easy to remember what happened. Because there would be one time where Roadrunner was running and there was a big whole crater in the road, and it's like, where did this crater come from? And then out of this crater comes a train out of nowhere, and it's just like, what? That's not possible. And because it's so ridiculous and it's so crazy, I remember it. My brain and memory loves that. It's like when I exaggerate things it's like to the moon. To the moon. When I exaggerate things, people remember it. I remember it. And those moments become something that stays with me, because it's like, that was way too ridiculous not to remember. That's something that I have to start incorporating a lot more, especially when it comes to things that I find it very hard to remember. Like, example, math. I don't think I'll ever need math or whatever, because I'm not going back to school to do anything in math. But as an example, if I want to remember some formula or something, exaggerating that formula to the point of it being so ridiculous will help me to remember that, hey, this goes into this minus this, and this is what the formula is. And I feel like we weren't even taught how to remember things. We were just thrown things in school and was like, hey, go study this. And I was just like, wait, but how do you expect me to remember all of this? And that's one of the other things. It's like teachers kind of want you to remember how to do something, but they don't want you to memorize it, which is like, what? Don't they go hand in hand? And it's frowned upon if you just memorize something because you're just memorizing it. And they want it to be so embedded in you that you will remember it for years. But it's just like, teacher, I don't remember half the things you taught me, okay? What I remember have nothing to do with school at all. So, won't say you're really wasting your time, but you kinda did. Memory is a very touchy subject for me, because I've seen my family member lose their memory, and it's like the things that they do remember are things that I've never heard about, and it's just like, you've never spoken about any of this. We try to put emphasis on things that we feel like are going to be so important to remember later on in life and everything, and the things that we do remember are so significantly simple and so ridiculous that we forget. And it's not that we forget, because obviously we don't, because when you're telling stories later on in life, even when you don't remember majority of your memories, you still remember something. And I feel like what we do remember are the things that are most impactful, that we don't know in those moments that are impactful. I was talking to my grandmother the other day, and she was telling me the story about how one of her sons basically told off some lady because she came and asked, because she was selling mangoes, and the lady came and was like, oh, I don't have any money, I'm begging. And she was like, okay, so take 2, it's fine. And she put like 6 in her bag and was adding more, and her son was like, she told you to take 2, why are you adding so many more? And the lady got offended, like, oh my God, how dare this little boy speak to me like this? And she was like, but he's not wrong. I mean, my grandmother didn't say anything, but my son did. And I feel like her remembering that story, even though it happened years ago, in that moment, she felt so proud of him for actually standing up for her and basically putting that woman in her place. Like, dude, we told you to take 2, not 6. Like, we're out here to try to sell them. So why do you feel like you should come and take more than what you were given? You're lucky she actually told you to take 2 and not move on your way. But she's very kind. So take 2 and move on your way. And I've never heard that story before. And when she told that, she told it with so much joy and so much love. And while I'm listening to her and just like, egging her on to keep the conversation going, I realized that it meant a lot to her. And it's those moments, because now she remembering that story, she's looking back and she's like, she loves it. But during that moment while it was happening, she probably wouldn't think that that would be a significant story that she would be telling almost 50 years later. So it's the things that we don't value in the moment that becomes the pillars that we remember. And that's something that we have to take into consideration, because if she wasn't aware in that moment, she wouldn't have remembered that story to tell. So we have to pay more attention to what we're doing now. And then the more attention we pay now, the more we'll start remembering things. And then quiz ourselves on what we actually do remember from the past moment. Like 2 minutes ago, what did I do? I was sitting here talking to you. I was telling you about the wonderful exercises in this book. So it's like, try to remember, do these little quizzes where it's like, okay, I came in the house. What was the first thing I did? Did I put my key where the keys go? Did I take my jacket off, put it in the coat closet? Or did I walk in and just like completely forget to do everything and just like throw this there, throw that there, and then tomorrow I can't find anything? It's being present in the moment first. And once we realize that the future depends on what we do right now and what we're aware of right now, we'll start making the moments feel more special and start paying more attention to what's now and what's right in front of you.